Let's join Jeff Jones now as Jeff shares with us the information that he's got as the industry changed through 2017. Jeff?
Good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction, Bob. I'm Jeff Jones with Statistical Surveys, like Bob said. Before we get started, there's just, Bob had mentioned the question and answer session. On the quick note, I want to open up the question and answer section in two different parts of my presentation. One will be after page 7, and the other will be at the end of the presentation. It'll be easily noted. The first part is more about how we collect the data, what we do with the data to get it prepared. The last portion of the slides will be on the data itself. So those will be the two different areas. So please feel free to submit them, and I'll answer them at each segment time. Again, thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Well, as Bob indicated, Statistical Surveys has captured data founded in 1958. We're the premier provider of market share solutions, trailers, RVs, towable and motorized, marine, manufactured housing, and most recently, power sports. We track retail sales within the trailer industry. We are considered the industry scorecard. Trailers are broken out into 5 segment types: boat, enclosed, horse, livestock, and open. Data process. When a new trailer is purchased at a dealership, the dealer registers the trailer with the state DMV. SSI purchases the DMV records from all 50 states. SSI takes these VINs and decodes them by manufacturer, axle, links, and a couple other items. The decoded data is put in a format that our customers can use to make more informed business decisions. Only new trailers appear in our reports. There are 2 types of data: placement versus dealer data. Placement data first is based on where a trailer is registered. All 50 state DMV reports used by the industry to determine market share gives a complete picture of the trailer industry down to the segment type. Size of the market by state, BTA, county, city, and zip code. Dealer information. So the dealer data is based on the dealer who sold the trailer. Available in 23 states. See map on the next page where we'll identify the states. This should be used exclusively when looking at what a dealer is selling. Great way to compare dealers. We would like to have all 50 states participate in the dealer information, but not all DMVs do that. Again, there's 23 states. And here are the 23 reporting states. I'll give you just a minute to read through them. The next slide will show the states that report. They're the ones in blue. Again, it's real important to understand how we collect the data, what we do with it. So at this point, if anyone has questions, I'll let Bob read them off, and I'll answer those.
Yeah, Jeff, a question just came in, just kind of walking back between the difference between placement and dealer data. So how do they differ again?
Okay, I'm going to go back to that screen. It's screen number 5. So placement versus dealer data. Placement, again, is based on where a trailer is registered. It's not based on where it's sold. So a trailer could be registered in or sold in Indiana and registered in Ohio, and it shows up in Ohio because that is where the market is and where the trailer is being used. All 50 states report that information. So that's where you can use it to determine the market share. Because just because it was sold in Indiana, it's being used in Ohio. So that's where the market share will be. The dealer information, again, only 23 states report that. And it's based on the dealer who sold the trailer. It's not based on where it was registered. It's only based on the dealer who sold the trailer. Now, if a dealer in Indiana was to sell a trailer and it was registered in Wisconsin, that dealer in Indiana would not get credit for that sale because Wisconsin does not report dealer information. But then it does give you a good idea of what the dealer is doing in those reporting states. Hopefully that answers the question, Bob.
Good, thanks. That was my only question.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to the industry. And today we're going to look at a very high level of the industry, just so you have an understanding of what's gone on in the last 5 years and what's gone on more relatively in 16 and 17 comparing the 2 years. And we'll look at the top states, top BTAs, and top length groups. So and we'll break them down in each segment group. So as we start, we're going to look at a 5-year history of all trailer segments. This includes those 5 that we talked about. And you can see in 2013 up to 17, it's been a steadily, increase from about 750,000 up to just over 1 million in 2017. Just to kind of give you a little back history real quickly, before 17, 2007 was the best year with 1,032,831 trailers registered. And then, as we all know, what happened in 2008, 9, and 10. And in 10, it hit the lowest point of 651,866. And then in 2011, it started on this uphill climb and it's continued to where it is today. So that gives you just a little back history. So let's look at 16 and 17 and see how those 2 years compare and look at it by the types of trailers. If you'll notice over here, we have types. We have all types. So in 2017, there was just over 1 million trailers registered in the US. And in 16, there was 994,000. So the industry was up 5.38% in 2017. Boats comprised 180,575 in 16 compared to 171,000 in 16. So it was that market share was up 5.57%. You can see it outperformed the market just a little bit, so its market share grew by 0.19%. Enclosed trailers, 209,000. They were up just about 10,000 units. So the market share in 17 was 20.4, where in 16 it was 19.98. The growth in that industry was 5.7. So it outperformed the market. So its market share growth was up 0.30. And these arrow buttons here will tell you which ones are up and which ones are down. But you can come over here and look at horse. It's 17,258, where it was 17,302 and 16. It actually lost a quarter of a point. So its market share, because the industry was up 5.38%, its market share declined 5.34%. Livestock, 13,414 and 17, 13,015 and 16. It was up 3.7%, but it didn't equal what the industry was doing, so its market share fell 2.19%. In open trailers, by far is the largest segment in the trailer group. It was 613,848 and 17 compared to 581, 128 and 16. You can see its market share in 17 was 58.99%. Market share in 16, 59.45%. Its growth was up over the industry just a little bit, so its market share growth grew about a quarter of a point. And I hope as we go along, if you have questions, you will submit them to Bob, and at the end, we'll address it with the data. So we're going to look at the top 10 states for all segment groups. So again, these numbers here at the top are going to look pretty familiar as we go through here, showing you what 17 numbers were, what 16 were, what the industry growth was. So Texas was the largest state at 125,000. They were up about 5,000 units compared to 16. You can see that their growth was 3.91%, but they didn't equal the industry, so they lost a little at 1.39%. Florida was the number 2 state at 82,603 versus 75,016. Their sales growth was up 10%, so they way outperformed the market, almost double what the market did. So their market share growth was up 4.45%. And as you can see, Texas is 125, and they start dropping off pretty quickly here, with California at 48,826. You can see what they were in 16. Again, they really had an increase in sales at almost 12%, so their market share growth was up 6%. So California really outperformed the market better than any other state in 2017. You have North Carolina at 47,000. They were up about 4,000 or 5,000 units. Their growth was at 10.909%. So again, their sales growth or their market share growth was up 4.47%. Pennsylvania, they were up about 2,000 units over 16. They were up 4.29%. Their market share growth fell a little bit because they didn't equal the sales growth of the industry. Georgia, about 42,000 compared to almost 39,000 in 16. Again, they were up. New York, 39,564 versus 38,411. Their sales growth was up 3%, didn't equal what the market was, so they lost in market share by 2.25%. Ohio, 38,318 compared to almost 36,000, so up about 3,000 units. Their growth was up 6.49%, outperformed the market. So again, their market share growth grew 1.05%. Minnesota, almost 38,000 units. They were up, they were actually down from 16, about 2,000 units. That's the only state that saw a decrease in the top 10, but they still made it in the top 10. So they saw about a 6.6% decrease. Their market share fell about 10.85%. Then we have Illinois here at 33,151 compared to almost 32,000. They grew by 4.42%. Again, this is the top 10 states in all segment groups. If we look at a map of those, of all the states and all the segment groups, you can see everything here in the green is on the positive side. The pink area here in the center are ones that decreased a little bit. And then we have a couple of states that we saw a bigger decrease in, right here, and then again up in here. And then here's a state over here that saw a small decrease. So for the most part, all the states saw an increase. So we talked about states, let's talk about BTAs. And so everybody has an understanding what a BTA is. It's a basic trade area that's established by Rand McNally. SSI has nothing to do with that. It's all done by Rand McNally. And what Rand McNally is saying that people within this BTA are more likely to buy within that BTA. They can vary in size depending on location. I believe that the Dallas-Fort Worth BTA is about 20 counties, but some BTAs are one county because they may have a river that's separating them from another area or a mountain range or different things that could cause that. So BTAs vary based on where they're located. Rand McNally publishes maps. We do have maps of BTAs as well. So again, BTA, when it says Dallas-Fort Worth, is not just Dallas and Fort Worth. It's the Dallas-Fort Worth BTA that makes up about 20 counties. And all trailer segments, again, these numbers across the top will look the same, but you start looking at here, you can see what Dallas-Fort Worth BTA, they were 29,439. So that one BTA registered more trailers than any other BTA in the United States. Houston was second at 27,969. Then you go right down to St. Paul. And if you look over here, the only one that is down is the St. Paul area. It's down 3.29%. We went back to the other map. I believe that Minnesota was the one state that was down over the other ones. So all the other ones saw a pretty nice increase. You know, Houston here was only at a 1.85, but you got some sixes and eights, 11.3 or 11.53, etc. And you can see what their market share growth was over here based on their sales growth. When we say sales growth, we're talking about trailers that were actually registered. So if you take a quick look at the different BTAs, because this information is going to change by segment type. Okay, so now we're going to talk about link groups in all segment types. What is the most popular trailer as far as link groups? Again, our numbers across the top and they're all is going to remain the same. 9 to 16 foot. It represents almost half of the market at 46.23%. But as you can see, the sales growth, and then you see the market share growth, it was down just a little bit because it didn't keep up with the market. The 17 to 20 footers was 17% of the market share. It grew over the sales growth of 7.23, so its market share was up. 21 to 30, it's up. You can see here, it's got a market share of 14%, a sales growth of 9.53%, and a market share growth of 3.94%. 0 to 8 footers. There's one that saw a decrease. Went from 111,169 to 113,731. So you see it was down 2.25%. Its market share growth went down 7.24%. 31 to 40 range, it was up. Saw a 13% increase. Market share increase. 41 plus was up just a little bit. Not big numbers. It only represented 1.26% of the market. Sales growth was up 1.94, and market share growth was down 3. Again, that's all trailer segment groups. So let's move on and start breaking these down into the different segment types. And the first one we're going to start with is enclosed. And here's a 5-year history of enclosed. And what they've done since 2013, it's just been a steady increase to 2017, where in 2017, they had just over 200,000 trailers registered. So in enclosed, 209,972 compared to 198,656. So that part of the segment was up 5.7%. Again, Texas was the #1 state. Florida, #2. And North Carolina came in at #3. Pennsylvania, California, then New York, Georgia, Ohio, Illinois, and Minnesota. Again, Minnesota was the only one that saw a decrease of about 10%. There were several states that didn't keep up with what the sales growth was, so they had a little bit of market share decrease. But overall, all of these states were up. It looks like North Carolina and Florida were the 2 biggest increases of just over 10%. So here are the states for enclosed trailers in 2017 that saw an increase, the ones that saw a little bit of a decrease, and the ones that really saw a more significant decrease in the dark red here and up here. But for the most part, enclosed trailers saw an increase in the majority of the states, and that's all in green. So let's look at those BTAs again, because again, that's important to understand because it can change from what a state sales is. Again, the Dallas-Fort Worth BTA is #1 at 4,800 units, but you can see that BTA did not equal what the growth was for that segment in 2017, so they lost some market share, but by far they were still the biggest. Houston was the biggest in the overall segment, but as you can see, New York is #2 here, and then Houston is #3. And then we go down the list, Minnesota, which has been at the bottom and saw some decreases. Again, they saw some decreases here, but it still put them in the 5th position. So you saw New York and Minnesota with decreases on the sales growth. And then in market share, you saw Dallas-Fort Worth, New York, Minnesota, and Atlanta, Georgia, with some decreases.
And Jeff, I want to just pause for just a second. There's been a couple of questions. Can you re-explain what BTAs are?
Yes. BTA, basic trade area that's established by Rand McNally. SSI has nothing to do with it. Rand McNally, the map maker, says that this BTA, the people residing in this BTA are more likely to purchase this type of product in this area. And again, a BTA can vary in the number of counties. It's made up by counties. Dallas-Fort Worth has about 20 counties included in it. If anyone's familiar with Dallas-Fort Worth area, that BTA starts just on the other side of Fort Worth, on the west side of Fort Worth, and goes to the east side all the way east of Mount Pleasant just a little bit. So again, it's about 20 counties. There's some counties up in the eastern part of the United States where rivers come, divide the counties, and there's no way to get from point A to point B without traveling a long distance. So people are not likely to travel that far. Out west, you have the mountain ranges that will divide two areas. So again, it can just depend on the number of where it's located, how many counties are in that BTA.
Okay, and then one more question, Jeff. On your maps, you showed the lower 48, but you didn't have Alaska on there. Do you have any data relative to Alaska on enclosed trailers? Did they grow or decline?
We do have data on it. I did not include it. I'd be happy to get something on that. I do believe that Alaska grew a little bit. Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Good. And Leslie, we'll make sure that we get that data for you so you can take a look at what's going on up in Alaska. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. Those are very good questions. The BTA is difficult to understand. Again, it's made up by numerous counties, depending on what Rand McNally's research tells them, how they break it out. So we get into length groups for enclosed trailers. As you can see, all the length groups are up in sales growth. There's three that are down, 9 to 16 footers. Again, over 50% of the market are 9 to 16 footers. It did see a little bit of a decrease, 3.58% growth. So its market share fell 2%. 17 to 20 grew 10%. It had the biggest increase. 21 to 30, you can see is up 7.88%. But 0 to 8 was up a little bit, but its market share fell. 31 to 40, their market share fell. 41 plus, not many units there. 1,242 compared to 1,135 and 16. But it is up almost with 17 to 20 as far as sales growth goes. So again, it's important to understand what's selling so you know what to be stocking. Let's talk about open trailers. So again, you can see in 2013 where open was, and it steadily increased just as enclosed did, but it's just over 600,000 in units for 2017. So if we compare 17 to 16, you can see It's 17 was 613,848 compared to 581, 128. So the sales growth was up 5.63% in that segment. Again, you can see the top 10 states, and notice that Missouri popped up here where it hasn't been in before, and Illinois fell out. So Texas was still number one. All states saw an increase in sales growth except for Minnesota. And then market share growth, where Texas, New York, and Minnesota did not equal the sales growth, so their market share fell. By far, open trailers is the biggest part of all 5 segment groups. So here's a map of the United States. And notice here, we have a darker green color in Utah. That is because it outperformed the market even more than the lighter green. And then you see the pink, and you see those same darker reds. Let's go back just a second, because what I want to show you here is on the other map, I showed you where Utah had a more significant increase in sales in open trailers, but they still did not fall in the top 10. And the top 10 is based sheerly on the number of trailers that are registered.
And Jeff, just another quick question while you're on that slide. The question came in with what's going on with Tennessee. Why is it so far down? Is it data, or is it just nobody's buying?
In 2016, Tennessee had a lot of trailers registered there. And we believe that it's probably a commercial customer that registered a lot of trailers for some reason in Tennessee. That's part of it. And part of it, they're redoing their reporting. And if you look at some of the information that we've released lately, we have said that Tennessee is delayed in its reporting. So I think it's a combination of 2 things. In 16, there were a lot of commercial trailers registered there. And also in 17, there have been delayed in doing some of their reporting. But just so that you know, anytime a state, if they report to us next month of units sold in 2017 in whatever months, our data is not stagnant. We go back and put it in the proper months and years that it's reported or sold.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep. So here we are on the top 10 states for BTAs, open trailers, 2017 versus 16. Dallas-Fort Worth still stays at the top. Houston, Atlanta, Minnesota, Phoenix, Arizona is a new one that's popped in. Well, I believe Phoenix popped in on all units, but they're higher up in the ranking. Los Angeles, New York, San Antonio is a new one, St. Louis, and Philadelphia. You can see, once again, Minnesota saw a little bit of a decrease, went from 10,086 units to 10,371 in 16. Not a lot, but a little bit. Then you saw San Antonio saw a little bit of a decrease. But then when you look at market share growth, you see a number of the states that have lost a little bit in market share. So they've just gone to other states. We're just looking at the top 10. Length in the open trailers, again, 9 to 16 footer, a little bit over 50% of the market. Didn't quite keep up with the market at 5.37%, so it lost about a 0.25% in market share. 0 to 8 was down. It lost 2.65 in sales growth and 7.84 in market share. But your 7 to 16, 17 foot to 20 foot, you can see it went up about 10,000 units, 15.98%. Sales growth was 9.33%. Market share growth 3.50. 21 to 30 went up about 5,000 units. 31 to 40 went up about 2,000 units. And 41 plus went up just a little bit, but again, it didn't keep up with the market, with the sales growth, so its market share growth fell a little bit. Let's look at the 5-year history for horse trailers. As you can see, about 16,013, and it went up in 14 and 15, and then in 16 it fell a little bit. 17 it stayed about even with 16. So the top 10 states. So in the horse trailer segment, in 17 it was 17,258 versus 16 at 17,302. Its sales growth was down about a 0.25 point. And we look at the states, Texas is still number 1, but they were down 4.84%. They lost 4.60% of the market share. California was down. They lost some market share. Colorado saw, it's not big numbers, but percentage-wise, it's big numbers. They went from 581 and 16 to 668. So almost a 15% increase in sales growth. Market share was just over 15%. Then if you jump down to Montana, you saw a decrease there, 5.76% in sales growth. Oregon, you saw an increase from 485 and 16 to 526. So you saw about an 8.45% increase. If we look at the states, we see a lot more rose color. Again, if you look at Utah, it's darker green than the rest of it. It's grown some. You see Tennessee, once again, is down. So it certainly hasn't been as good a market for the horse trailer side of things as it has for others. So we look at the top 10 BTAs. Dallas and Fort Worth just don't want to give up. They continue to stay up there at top. But you can see that they were down just a little bit more in sales growth in the industry. Houston was there, but they were way down with a 14% decrease. Now, here's where Salt Lake City and Ogden jump in the BTA with a 40% increase. So they went from 254 to 357. Here we look at Minnesota, and we see an increase there where they've been showing decreases everywhere. They saw a 7.55% increase. So they went up in market share to 7.83. You see Denver has had a pretty good increase from 279 and 16 to 344. Seen a 23.3% increase. Coming on down to Los Angeles, there's been a pretty good increase there with just over 11%. Billings has seen a decrease of about 13% in sales growth. Seattle has seen an increase, 17.16. Their market share growth has gone up to 17.46. And then San Francisco has seen a little bit of an increase. Length groups, 9 to 16 stays up at the top, but it saw a pretty good decrease at 8.61%. 31 to 40 saw the biggest increase. Well, no, not quite the biggest increase, but right up there at the top at 11.42. 41 plus saw the biggest one at almost 14%. Get into livestock. Once again, you can see where livestock was at 13. It climbed the ladder, and in 16 it fell off. It bounced up just a little bit in 17. So these two markets certainly haven't been like the open and enclosed market where they've seen a steady increase. Here's your top states. Ohio at almost 13%, but you have Indiana at almost 19.5%, so they were by far the largest. And Illinois is at almost 14%. Texas by far outsold any of them. Here are the states. We've got a couple of states here in the darker green, here, here, and all the way over here, with the other greens in here, and then the lighter rose color. And this one here is white because there was nothing there that changed, so it stayed that color, just white. And that's for the horse trailer market. I'm sorry, livestock. Here are the top VTAs for the livestock market. You can see that Texas was up 17.5%. San Antonio, or Dallas-Fort Worth was up 17.5%. San Antonio was up almost 23%. Denver, 57%. Oklahoma, 39, almost 39.5. Kansas City, 22%. So some of these states saw some pretty significant increases in the livestock, and I say states, VTAs, I'm sorry. Then here are the length groups. The livestock market, 9 to 16 is still the highest one, with 21 to 30 just behind it. Then we fall off pretty good to 17 to 20, 31 to 40, 41 plus. As you can see, all of these length groups had a sales growth increase. Some of them didn't keep up with the market, so they fell off just a little bit. Let's talk about boats, and I'm running a little bit quick on this, Bob, because we're running close, I think, on our time, and I want to be sure I can answer some questions. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker. So we got boats. We've seen a steady increase since 2013, just like we did in the open and closed market. We can see the top states. Texas was finally beat out on the boat segment by Florida. You can see that Florida and Texas, neither one kept up with what the sales growth was for the industry, so they fell a little bit in market share. North Carolina did a very nice job, so did California, and some of their states outperformed the market. So the only two states you really saw that were down were Minnesota and New York. A few other ones lost some market share. Here's a map for boats. You can see we've got Nevada and I believe Alabama that had some pretty good increases. Not quite as much pink here as we've seen on some of the other maps. Again, Tennessee stays red. Here are the top BTAs for boats. Now, Florida was the top state, but New York was the top BTA at 5,600 units. And they saw an increase of 5%, but once again, didn't keep up with the market. Minnesota and Houston fell below the market. So they saw some decreases in sales growth. And then a number of states saw some decreases in market share growth. Length groups, 21 to 30 was the most popular and by far outperformed the market at 10.36% in sales growth. So their market share growth went up 4.5%. 17 to 20 didn't grow much, but didn't fall behind in number of units or number of links. 9 to 16 outperformed the market almost 7%. So its sales growth was up 1.28%. 31 to 40 was up 9%. 0 to 8 was up 9%, almost 9.5%. 41 plus saw a big increase at 17.18% increase, but the number of units were pretty small at 191 compared to 163 in 2016. That is the end of the presentation as far as numbers. I'm more than happy to answer any questions at this point.
Great. Well, we'll open it up. I think, Jeff, we were answering them a little bit along the way as you came up on some of the data. So I don't have any other questions now. Let's wait for just a little bit and see if any others come in. Just a question from my perspective, as we work with dealerships throughout North America, what's your sense of how 218 is going to compare to 217? Do you guys have a sense of that yet?
You know, my only sense of that is what I'm hearing from manufacturers, dealers, vendors, and it's a personal call on my part. I think it's going to be another good year. Okay. We just looked at January data for 2018. It's comparing about equal to 2017 in January. I think it has possibilities of being another good year.
Okay. A couple of questions came in. Number one, are you okay with us? Can you provide the slides for this webcast as a part of this, Jeff? That'd be possible.
Will that be the part? Won't it be recorded on NATDA's website?
Yeah, it is. We'll record this, but if they wanted to go back and look at just the slides by themselves, is that possible, or would you prefer them to just do it through reviewing the webinar again?
If they contacted me directly, I think I could probably do that.
Okay, that's great.
In my information here, that number is the best number to contact me. There's my email address. So I will be traveling starting in the morning for a few days. So it might take me a couple of days to get back to you.
Okay, Jeff, your total focus has to be on us. Just understand that. Everything. So, okay, no, just kidding. And then another question: do you have any statistics data for Canada, any of the provinces in Canada?
You know, Bob, we just started with Canada. We have been collecting data for a while. We've just now gotten to the point where we feel like that it's good. There are a couple provinces that that the data information is not clear on yet. but for the most part, all the provinces are good. So if anybody has questions about Canada, they can contact me.
Okay, and we'll make sure, Jeff, that your email address is sent along with this. So if they have any other questions, they can reach out to you on that. I don't have any other questions come in. It was fascinating. It's always interesting to see how this is and the data that's there. So just a couple kind of follow-ups. Leslie Gustafson up in Alaska was just asking about some data on Alaska. So if we can kind of help the folks up in Alaska with that, that'd be awesome. And then we'll reach out to you to do that. And then we'll make sure that the other information that you need is sent your way.
Okay. Let me just say this in closing, Bob. Hopefully, everyone has found this information useful. As an NATDA member benefit provider, Statistical Surveys provides NATDA members with the discounted options to better understand your dealer sales process. Today, we looked at a very high level. I mean, I'd almost call it a 100,000-foot level. We can drill that down to a defined market area that will assist a dealer or manufacturers in growing their dealership. So if you have any information or want any information, please feel free to contact me. Also want to say a special thanks to Bob Clemens International for helping us get this webinar off the ground today.
Well, it was a little iffy on my side. My daughter Sarah had a doctor emergency that came up. So bless you, Jeff, for working with me.
Well, together we got it off the ground.
We did.
So
we did.
There we go. And by the way, you're going to be hosting the next webinar next month on April the 17th.
Well, then I'll have to make you run mine, and then I'll do the speaking on it. How about that? Fair enough?
Okay.
Good.
Well,
hey,
again,
one other question, Jeff, real quick. So if I were a dealer and I wanted specific demographic data, can you guys provide that also to a dealership? So I'm looking at figuring out how do I market to and who do I market to? You guys pull that data also as a part of what you're doing?
Well, the demographics we're working on right now, we're going to have something real soon, but I can drill down to a defined market area, and whatever a dealership wants to define as their market area, whether it's counties, whether it's a radius map, and I can tell them down to the zip code of what's been selling manufacturer-wise. If it's a dealer reporting state, dealer-wise, we can tell them length groups, we can tell them axle groups, we can tell them whether it's steel or aluminum, a lot of hitch types. So again, this was a very high level. We just looked at the segment types. We didn't drill down to see what was going on in a defined area.
Well, I got nothing going on for the next hour, Jeff. So if you just want to keep going, we can do that.
We could go on a lot longer than an hour.
That's all right. I got nothing here. So, well, I appreciate it. You have been a pleasure to work with. And again, I appreciate your patience on helping me get this set up. If you do have other questions, you can email them to NATDA, Heather and Corey in the group there. You guys, most of you can reach out to us here at Bob Clements International. We can get those. We'll funnel those to Jeff, and then Jeff will make sure that your contact information is there. So if they have any questions on how they can better use your data and work with you guys to help them increase their sales and profitability, I'm fairly confident you would be happy to help them.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, don't look like there are. Jeff, we really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And thanks, everybody, for joining us on this. And thanks, NATDA, for hosting this.
Thanks.